Good morning. My name is Chris Fox, and today we're talking about why your readers read. This is possibly the most important thing we can learn as authors, a deep understanding of why someone reads in our particular genre. Because what I found over time is that people tend to read for a lot of different reasons, but if you look at a specific genre, usually those are clustered. There are some commonalities to how they read. And so what I'm going to do is tell a personal story, and it's fairly personal, but you'll see why at the end and how it shaped me as a reader. So from age 8 to about 22, I was what I define as a habitual reader, meaning I read every single day. And in my case, I was reading fantasy novels. These fantasy novels were attractive to me for a very specific reason. So if you rewind all the way back to 1984 when Chris was 8 years old, my parents had been divorced, and every summer, my older brother, and I would fly out to Bethel Island, California, which was a small island in the river delta not too far away from where I live today. At the time, my brother and I lived in Arizona, so it was a little bit of a plane ride. We'd fly to California. It was exciting adventures. We would spend that summer on my mom's houseboat, and we'd get to watch movies and stay up late and, eat stuff we weren't supposed to eat. And, it was kind of like a party every summer. And of course, we loved our mom. So, it was an amazing adventure. But unfortunately, at the end of every summer, that adventure would come to an end and we would say our tearful goodbyes. And, we would be relegated to phone calls for the rest of the year. And it was challenging. I'm sure equally so on my mom, but definitely on us as kids where we just, wanted to see our mom. So we had this kind of back and forth over a few year period, and my mom finally said, enough is enough. And she decided, okay, I'm going to sue for custody. I want my kids back. So we were involved in a very messy custody battle, which my mom ultimately lost. But she didn't accept the judgment and decided to fight it anyway. So my brother and I were staying on the houseboat at the time. We received a phone call, and I'll remember this vividly, despite, the intervening decades. My mom told me to pack some food, grab my brother, and then cross the island and go to her boyfriend's boat. I knew where that was, and he was going to take us to safety. Well, we ended up spending the next year on the run. My brother Brian became Alex, and I went from Chris to Todd, and we lived literally on the run. We changed our names, went from school to school. It was a very chaotic way to live, and it had a very lasting impact on me as an 8-year-old because when it ended, my mom, unfortunately, was arrested, and I didn't see her again for some time. Now, this story has a happy ending. I reconnected with my mom. We spent many wonderful years together before she passed, so it had a happy ending. We reconnected, but for a good 2 decades, I wasn't in contact with her. She was taken away. So now we're back to the point of the video. 8-year-old Chris realized that if I picked up a fantasy novel, I could find agency. I could be an assistant pig keeper or a hobbit or somebody innocuous. I could start out really weak and not have abilities, just like me. These little boys or little girls or little, monsters or whatever I was reading, they were powerless, but by the end of their story, they'd grown up and gotten power. And so this was a way for 8-year-old Chris to have some agency in his life. That's why I think I was so addicted to fantasy novels. And every day I'd read one. And if I ran out, we'd go to the library and I'd, get 6 or 7 books. And, throughout the course of the week, I'd read them all. And if I read them all, I'd start rereading the best one. I did that my entire childhood. And today, as an adult, it's not hard to track. I watch this about myself. If I'm craving fantasy, it's usually because something turbulent's going on in my life. It's interesting because I can link the two together, and over time my tastes have changed. Interestingly, despite having read literally probably over 1,000 fantasy novels in my life, I don't read so much of it anymore. I read a few series here and there are some great ones that I follow. But by and large, I do like, nonfiction and documentaries because I don't have that same need for agency that I once did as a kid. But if I'm going to be writing epic fantasy, then I want to make sure I can get across to my readers the things that they expect. If they read for the same reasons that I did, if they're seeking, deep down a sense of agency and maybe a little bit of control, and what kid isn't really? If that's what they're looking for, then I better be satisfying that. I better understand that is the emotional resonance that my readers are seeking. So when you're writing your books, a lot of the stuff is going to happen from your subconscious, and most of us write for ourselves, but hopefully you're a member of your own existing audience, and so you're going to capture that emotional resonance. But I think it's also good to be very conscious of it, because when you start to see what works and what doesn't, it'll tell you with your next book or your next series, what landmines not to step on, while also allowing you to still deliver a satisfying story. Because if I know that my readers are craving certain things, then I can tweak the story as much as I want and change certain parts of it, as long as I still deliver that kind of emotional feeling that they're after, as long as I can create an emotional resonance that 8-year-old Chris would have been happy with. So anyway, guys, I do need to get back to the writing. I am flying to Novelist Inc. next week in Florida, so I have to polish up my talks. I have 2 that I'm working on, 2 workshops. And I've also got a number of writing projects in the offing. Anyway, I'm going to get back to the writing. I should have a video for you guys, if not next week at NINC, then the following week. But I'll be back on probably a more regular schedule after that. And I'll see you guys hopefully next week or the week after.